It's Dr. Drew, Midday Live with Lauren Saban.
Midday Live, Lawrence Vaughn, Dr. Drew, 800-222-5222 is our phone number. We've got a bunch of stories to get into today. Right now, we're going to go out to speak with Maxine Doogan. She's a sex worker activist and founder of ESPLR, ESPLER Project, Inc. And we're talking a little bit of Amy Schumer's performance coming up and you guys protesting on, we get the name, International Whores Day on June 2nd. So help us understand what's going on here, Maxine. Thanks.
Well, thank you. So June 2nd is traditionally International Whores Day. It's to honor a very famous protest that happened in France back in the 70s, where a bunch of prostitutes who had some bad laws passed against them went and did a sit-in at a church in France to be able to protest these bad laws because they were feeling unprotected. They had their rights stripped away, and the churches participated in stripping away their rights. So they felt they would go occupy the church. So that sparked International Whores Day, and Amy Schumer happens to be in San Francisco for Cluster Fest for June 2nd, and we've been protesting her because she helped pass a bad law recently that stripped everybody of their online rights to be able to, talk and discuss amongst ourselves bad customers, for example.
So let's talk about the law.
Ads.
Is it the SESTA law that you're referring to?
Yes, it's called SESTA, which is the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act.
Right, okay.
So it took out a protective section out of the Communication Decency Act, which allows a carve-out for people to sue websites and for prosecutors to criminalize websites if there's any activity like forced labor in the sex industry found beyond them. But this law went beyond what was necessary. It's very overbroad. It included, prostitutes in this language. And, prostitution is not illegal at the national level. And I don't know that, people are really aware of that.
I'm definitely not aware of that.
Explain that.
Yeah, so prostitution is criminalized on a state-by-state basis. And what this law did is it criminalized the activity around prostitution, which is our ability to communicate, the ability to negotiate for our own labor and our own safe work conditions using online platforms. So Amy Schumer was a part of lobbying for this bad law. I don't know if she knew what was in it.
I have to believe that the people that were lobbying for this law just thought it was going to crack down on sex trafficking. I do believe that that's why people signed on to defend it, but I do see in the fine print here how this could work against someone like you who's a sex and relies on these kinds of references and screening for your clients.
Well, and not only that, but it took out, for example, like the Craigslist personal section where there isn't generally an exchange of, compensation for, spending time or companionship for anybody. So, it was just really having to, people just don't understand that they lost a bunch of their online privacy rights too. So that's a big problem.
Well, it is a big problem, Maxine. So, by the way, I love your bio that you sent us. Maxine is a lifelong whore. She's trained in the fine art of providing erotic services in the underground economies. We are speaking with Maxine Doogan, a sex worker activist, about this bill, the FOSTA or SESTA bill. And, lawmakers find themselves in a tough position now because everybody wants to crack down on sex trafficking, particularly sex trafficking of minors. We're hearing about all these children separated from their families at the border and being lured into sex rings. So how do we fight against that while maintaining your rights and protections?
Well, that's a great question. And what you want to do is this bad law that Amy Schumer was championing named prostitutes, and we should be at the table to discuss any laws that have to do with us, and we were never consulted. Nancy Pelosi, I'm in Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Dianne Feinstein's district. They know I'm here. They know who I am. They never think to
call the
give
horse,
us the time of day to call us up and say, well, what do you guys think? How can we make this law better? How can we help people enforce labor without abridging your rights?
Hang on a second, though. I understand. I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, laws are passed every day that affect me as a physician that they never consult physicians about. So you have to go in there yourself or have a professional society that goes in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they will not come to you, trust me. So did you try to do that?
Well, we did. We sent letters. It's so interesting that you say that. We did. We sent letters, and only because of the public pressure that a bunch of the activists got together and brought did it bring any visibility and invoke a response from these representatives. And so we got back letters like one from Kamala Harris that basically bragged about taking out Backpage. She had charged Backpage here in California about a year and a half ago with the state statute pimping and pandering, which allowed her to go in and execute a warrant on their business office in Dallas, Texas. And so because they got the financial information that they were looking for, they were able to come back and charge, even though the charges were dismissed here at the California level, they were able to come back and charge Backpage with promoting prostitution and with money laundering at the state level in Arizona and in Texas, and it brought in the U.S. government, the Homeland Security, to seize that URL. That resulted in putting tons of people out of work. Backpage had already been cooperating with the authorities for, sex trafficking on their site. So it didn't really make any sense. In fact, the authorities like the DOJ, the Department of Justice, opposed, this bad law. And they opposed taking down Backpage.
Yeah. So it sounds rational.
But
I would sure like
to hear that. Even if they take down Backpage, won't they find somewhere else to advertise?
The internet is sort of the place now, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, Christian mingle, here we come.
There you go. Uh-oh. That'll get their attention.
So I just want to clarify something you said earlier, that prostitution is not illegal federally, but that each state is allowed to develop its own statutes on this, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And thus far, is it only Nevada where it actually is, and only parts of Nevada where it is legal?
Yes. So, in Nevada, you have a certain rural areas that have a population of under 400,000 that can legalize the brothel system. So that leaves a bunch of independent workers out. It doesn't, so it's not really an inclusive form of regulation. We think there's better forms of that. But really, you want to treat us with respect, and you want us to, come to the table and participate in that. So our group actually has a federal lawsuit against the state of California to invalidate the prostitution law so that people are no longer criminalized and they can come to the table and participate in any sort of regulation scheme.
Let me ask you a question that's intentionally polemical, which is, what do you say to people? You sound very sensible and very well informed, and I'm following you, and it makes sense. And I'm just trying to think of where you could be taken on. And it occurred to me that somebody might say to you something like, well, you sound sensible, but you're identifying with your abusers. You're essentially it's the equivalent of Uncle Tom with his identifying with his slave owner. And you merely are delusional, and we should be breaking you of that and helping you come to the light side. What would you say to somebody, and without invoking any sort of religious or moral tones, just strictly, what would you say to that kind of an argument?
Well, prostitution is a legitimate business. It's been around for a long time. We're going to be here for a long time. We need to be treated with respect. And, there's other businesses, that are really exploitive. There's always a big struggle we see with Walmart workers, trying to hold, their owners, accountable to provide them with health care, to provide them with a decent wage. And, we're not criminalizing the Walmart workers. We're not criminalizing the Walmart shoppers. So to criminalize our industry is just really another form of discrimination. It's another form of actually legalizing, people's moral, puristic sexual values.
But that's not how... I understand, but you have to agree that the sex trafficking is at the heart of these bills. I mean, when you see minors and children getting, caught up in this, immigrant children, I mean, there has to be a way to basically crack down on that, in some measurable...
There is a way. Yeah, the way to do that is to decriminalize prostitution so there's some transparency in our industry. We have many customers, other types of workers who come across somebody in our industry who doesn't belong here.
Right.
And, we actually interviewed Dr. Lois Lee, who's in your neck of the woods down there with Children of the Night on our YouTube channel, the Sex Worker Nation. And Dr. Lee talks about a friend of hers who called one of the hotlines because they came across such a person, somebody who was not in the sex industry.
So what you would say is that you guys are part of the solution here.
Well, what's the solution?
The solution is that you have to decriminalize prostitution so that people in our industry cannot be criminalized, so that we can come forward when there's something wrong. As the laws now, you're criminalized as a sex trafficker. That's how the law is written. People don't understand how that law is written or how that law is enforced. Those laws are enforced under the anti-prostitution law that scoop up everybody. Everybody's arrested for prostitution. Everybody is saddled with the criminalization of prostitution or prostitution arrest record. Means that you can't get a job, driving for Uber. That comes up as on your security background check. I just counseled a worker on that the other day. Here's this prostitution arrest from 5 years ago, still on her record, and she can't get a job, and she is barred from getting a bunch of jobs. So whether you're arrested for prostitution because you're forced into it, and that's the only way they identify sex trafficking victims, right? You have to be arrested for prostitution.
Right.
Or you're somebody who's illegal, who wants to be a legitimate worker like me, who's treated it as a lifelong profession. And, criminalization is a failed approach. We saw that with the war on drugs, right?
Maxine, I have to ask you, because it's very rare that we have a sex worker like yourself on the line. What draws you to this profession? Why sex work?
Well, it's a great job. Not everybody is cut out for it. Not everybody is sexually gifted and talented. Not everybody is able to parlay their sexually gifted and talentedness into a profession. But that's part of the problem with criminalization. The people who would be really good at it sometimes are detoured from being in it because it's criminalized. And then sometimes because it's criminalized, you end up with people in it who really, don't want to be in it, or, it's a temporary job for them, which is fine. But you just have to, we've got to have some transparency, and nobody supports arresting people for prostitution. It's just a failed approach.
It doesn't, it doesn't have a lot of longevity associated with it, right? The profession?
Well, I've been in the business for 28 years.
It's longer than any job I've had.
I know several other people who've worked in the business for double-digit years. There's actually quite a few of us out there.
All right. Well, Maxine, appreciate it. Again,
good luck at the march.
The website?
Protest.
Yeah, our website is, we're on Twitter at ESPU-CA, or you can follow me at the SF Mistress.
There you go. Thank you, Maxine. Appreciate it. It's Lauren Savant, Dr. Drew. It's Midday Live.